Welcome to the Corona Chronicles. We are still in Revelation chapter 17, and we're going to pick up from verse 9. After yesterday, we were considering the beast and these two astonishments. You know, who's astonished at what? So you can go back and listen to yesterday's one if you want to kind of orientate yourself a bit. But we're going to read from verses 9 to 14. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come, but when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. The beast who was, and now is not, is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7, and is going to his destruction. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received the kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. They will wage war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will triumph over them because he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and with him will be all his called, chosen and faithful followers.
Well, I don't know if you read Revelation for the first time, it does sound weird, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's 7 kings, and then there's an 8th king that belongs to the 7th king, and then there's a beast, and then there's this King of Kings.
Yes,
it can be quite confusing, and you can see why people mock the Bible, but actually there's deadly serious stuff here, isn't it? And actually, it's not that hard if you know the rest of the Bible. It sort of fits in. So we've got this calling for a mind of wisdom. So in other words, don't just laugh at this.
no,
Really think about this. And of course, the way you really get wisdom is through listening to God, isn't it? I mean, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, the Bible says. And we fear him not by hiding from him, but by hearing his word. And listening to what he says. So here he is. He's saying this is what's going on in the world, and it's you've got to listen. And then he tells us about these kings and things, and hills and mountains, and it's all to do with power and empires and kingdoms, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we're learning about the history of these empires. So. In verse 10, these 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. In other words, this is kind of what we were looking at yesterday as well, that there have been empires that have looked extremely powerful and yet are now fallen. So take Egypt, take Babylon. These are kingdoms that have come and gone. There is the one that is, so we're still living in a sense under the authority of, there's dark powers and dark authorities at the moment, and then there's one that's yet to come. And that's kind of something you see throughout here. It's like we're heading towards this climactic battle, between the Lamb and between these dark, evil authorities. It's kind of like, if people are familiar with the Lord of the Rings, books and films, this is what happens. So throughout the trilogy, you've got some pretty big battles that take place. You've got the Battle of Helm's Deep, the Battle of Minas Tirith, and where the dark forces come and they're toppled, and yet it's all approaching this climactic battle at the gates of Mordor, when the evil ones, all that they've got left, they're just now going to throw it at the forces of good, everything that they've got, and yet their fate is sealed and they're going to lose. So it's kind of the same thing going on. The 5 kings have fallen. There's been victories in the past, but we're approaching when the gates of the enemy open and they throw everything they've got at the Lamb, basically.
Yeah. So it's a sort of battle of the kingdoms, as you say. And when he talks about 7 hills, the 7 heads of the 7 hills on which the woman sits, that is well known, because Rome was built on 7 hills.
Yeah.
And so there's a sense of all of those historic kingdoms, and at the time of writing, of course, Rome was the superpower.
Yeah,
Babylon wasn't,
no.
Egypt wasn't,
no.
Rome was, but Rome itself has now gone.
Yeah.
So we're coming to this final, and I think the other thing is it just struck me that this 8th king is the beast, and he's part of the 7. So it's sort of what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I think that what that's saying is that these 7 kings representing the kingdoms of this world are actually influenced by this 8th king, sort of over them, which is the beast. And as we were seeing yesterday, they're structured on that which is unjust and unjust and evil. And although they're big buildings like Babel was, you've got the slaves that have to make the buildings, and you don't see all of that. So there's this terrible injustice that's going on, and then the Lamb is gonna come in.
Yeah, the lamb is good, and we talked about this in the past as well. But despite how things look, this big battle is going to be over pretty quickly.
In an hour.
Yeah. So I don't know how many ages it's taken them to amass their forces, but it's going to be over pretty quickly. And the Lamb is the one who is going to triumph.
I mean, that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you've got all these armies amassing themselves against a lamb.
Yeah, you send a lamb out to the Mordor forces.
It's sort of fairly easy to kill, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the lamb wins.
Yeah, because he is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and there can be no standing against one with titles like that. We're not left in any doubt as who's in charge and who's going to win.
And he's going to win, but he's going to win on behalf of others as well.
Yeah.
So that verse 14 at the end, it says, and with him, with the Lamb, with the Lord of Lords, with the King of Kings, with the one who triumphs, and with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love that, because that sentence gives all the glory to the Lamb, because what are we told about these followers? Well, not that they're mighty, not that they're good in battle, not that they're strong in themselves. Their victories because they've been called by the Lamb. They've been chosen by the Lamb. They're the Lamb's weak people who have been made strong in him.
Yeah.
And that's why they're going to win.
Yeah. And we were learning, in the last couple of sessions, that it's these holy people that's blood was shed.
Yeah.
Because but they're faithful. Yeah. They're faithful witnesses, even though they seem to be destroyed. They're not destroyed. They're everlasting. Yeah.
And I think just practically, thinking about how this helps us, it sets our expectations, doesn't it? That this, and you hear this in the media and stuff, this idea that the longer we go on as a civilization, things are going to get better and better and better. We're going to become more moral, more efficient, more advanced, more peace-loving, more harmonious, The Revelation just kicks that into touch, doesn't it? For as long as we live on Earth, we are going to be, sin is going to be a feature. Satan and his authority is going to be a feature of life, and we just need to know that. We need to know that we're going to have a spiritual battle on our hands until the end. But the way we draw strength for that battle is knowing that the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords is on the winning side. And so we look ahead. We fight with hope, don't we?
Well, I was just thinking about most of the sort of things that we shout when we're demonstrating to the government that we want to do something for us is all about now, isn't it? What do we want? We want
freedom,
freedom or more money, don't we? When do we want it? Now, and that's the chant, isn't it? But that isn't the chant of the Christian. It's what do we want? Well, we want to be faithful followers of Christ. And when's that going to happen? Well, when the King comes. There's this sort of looking to the future, isn't there? So we are people that are supposed to be sort of out of our now, aren't we? Looking beyond. Even though we may be suffering now. It won't go on for long. Well, we better finish there, I think.